Hi, this is Mark from Skywagon University. We've done 172s before, but everybody thinks of a 172 as sort of a Lycoming pad plane with windows all the way around, and there are variants of it. So this is like a model year changes video about 172s, because this is a 172, but it was only like this for 2 years. So in the beginning, after the Earth cooled and the dinosaurs were wiped out by the meteorite, the 170 was built, Cessna 170. 1947, and then the 1948 rag wing, 2 struts, 49. Then they went to the 170B, which is the dihedral metal wing with Fowler flaps, and I had a 52 170B, and it went from 52 to 56 with barely any changes except the shape of the rear window in 55 and 6. So Cessna decided, let's make a 170C, an upgraded and better version of the 170C. And they designed it and test flew it and certified it, but never produced it, because somebody said, let's put a nose wheel on it. And Cessna were like, why would you put a nose wheel on it? Nose wheels are for keeping the propeller off the ground, and real men fly tail draggers, etc., etc., etc. But they did, and they put a nose wheel on it, and they called it the 172 in 1956. It had a straight tail, and it was like a miniature 182, Fowler flaps, 0300 engine, very, very popular. And it became, 172s in general, since then, they've made 44,000 of them. And the 172 is the most popular and mass-produced plane in the history of the world. So there's a little bit of background, how it became a nose wheeler. This is a 1962 172. And let's look at why that's different to the years before and the years after. So 56 to 59 172s have straight tails, a vertical fin, square, like a little mini 180. And if you put a Lycoming 360 in them and make them into a tail dragger, they're literally they're like a little mini 180. They're fantastic planes. So then in 60 to 62, they had this tail on, the swept tail, same horizontal stabilizer. So with a sloped tail and no rear window. So that was 60 to 62. This is a 62. The only difference between the 62 and a 61 is there was an option of an autopilot in it, and it was slightly lowered, and a few other minor differences. But so this is a 172C, which is a 1962. In 63, they lowered this tail cone, they narrowed it, so that when it hit the rear fuselage here, it had to rise up, and in doing so, they got a rear window. And that was called the Omnivision rear window. And everything in Cessna pretty much at that time, roughly, correct me if I'm wrong, got rear windows, 182s, 172s. The 170 was out of production by then. They stopped in 56 making them. So 60 to 62 have no rear window. They're the fastbacks, and they look like this. But they've got some other things on them that the earlier planes and the later planes don't have, which people really like. So the engine on 172s, I'm not taking the cowling off because it involves sort of 40 minutes of screw undoing, and they never go back in the same place twice. So they have an 0300 6-cylinder, so O opposed, 300 cubic inches, 6 cylinders, flat, air-cooled, direct drive, from 1956 till 1966, and in 67 planes. In 67, in 68, they got the Lycoming 0320, which is a 4-cylinder Lycoming at 150 horse. So this is a 6-cylinder at 145 horse, and the Lycoming that went in 1968 is a 4-cylinder Lycoming at 150 horse that could be upgraded to 160 horse. So they were all like 150, 160. So Lycoming 68 newer, and then obviously the 180 horsepower Lycoming 360 can be put in any of them retroactively with any number of 3 STCs, Penyan airplanes, and Avcon. Avcon has got a constant speed prop with its. The others are fixed pitch, but they have gross weight increases and various things, and it's a major, major deal. It makes the plane into an incredibly useful plane. So this is a 6-cylinder Continental, and we're not going to look at it, but briefly, there's a giant access panel for checking the oil and dealing with the battery and just pre-flighting it. But that is going to be very similar access on all of the 0300 pad planes. So inside it, the width never changed in 172s. They always were this wide. 59, current today. So they made them right up until 1986, stopped production due to product liability issues, restarted in 96, 10-year gap with the S's and SPs, and so this width of the cabin is the same from just after World War II to today. So the main thing in here on a 62 and a 63 and everything before it is the manual flaps. So there's 40 degrees, exactly like a 180, a 185. I mean, same flaps, same mechanism, same everything. They're fantastic. So there's 10, 20, 30, 40. And at 40, it's a barn door, and they're incredible. But people really like that. And the later model 172s have got electric flaps with a little switch here, better for training. You don't have to reach forward, take your eye off the road. So they got rid of that, and they have the little manual switch up here. The trim, so in a 180, 185, there'd be a giant trim wheel here with a ratchet because it moves the whole horizontal stabilizer. This is just the regular little trim tab on the tail. Very effective. Excellent little trim. Big old manual flaps on it. That's a big plus in these planes. People like them. If you put a Lycoming 180 horse in this plane and big tires on it and bush fly it with a stall kit on it, that manual flap, those manual flaps are very much what people want. In the panel, it's just going to be similar to the older planes, not quite center stacked, even though the throttle's right here and in the way, so the radios are in the middle. In this one in particular, it's just got a little navcom, transponder, intercom, CD player, excellent, and AM/FM radio cassette in it. And then the gyro instruments are all over here. It does have a vacuum pump. It's not Venturi. The early 170s had Venturis on the side of the plane, which created the vacuum, which ran the instruments and the gyros. But these have vacuum pumps. Otherwise, very conventional. Dual controls, push to torque on them, on the yokes, double brakes, and a massively high visibility windshield. So it would be extremely familiar to somebody to buy and learn in and be an hour build in as a trainer. Okay, in the back, 172, 4 seats. I mean, you don't want to load it up with 4 200-pounders and go and fly over the mountains, but they will do it. You just got to be careful. So these front seats are in the flying position, even though the backs are angled forward. That is the rear legroom. That is the rear room in the rear seat. And then behind it, you just reach over here. There's a little latch. Pull that down. There's the baggage area. And there's a baggage door, which obviously accessible from the outside. I'm holding the seat belts up out of the way, but there's a big baggage area. There's a hat shelf for your hats. You always got to make sure you put your hats on that. So it's a very practical plane. I mean, it's something you could buy and own and use and learn in and keep afterwards if you weren't, using it to go cross country at high altitude and high speed. Cheap to own, cheap to maintain, cheap to run, the fuel burn and the maintenance costs on it are minimal. It burns about 7 gallons an hour and does about 100 knots. And carries about 800 pounds total. So let's fire it up and take it around the patch. Clear. So starting it was mixture in, throttle cracked, mags on, master on. Key, 62 is the first year of key. This 61 would have had a push button. So key to start, then idle, and it's running. And just exactly like all 172s, it's got nose wheel steering plus a little bit of differential braking. So it's going to be, it would feel just like a much later model plane. It just doesn't cost, 500 grand. These are a big bang for that buck. So all you got to remember on a pre-68 172 that has the 0300 in it, there's a 145 horse or an 0300 Continental 6-cylinder. They're only 145 horsepower. They're not a big engine. So you just got to allow for that in temperature and load. You just got to be sensible with it. Don't overload it because it's got 4 seats. Doesn't mean it can always be full. So the run up, controls, instruments, efficient. And then the run up. 1700 RPM. Left mag, right mag, both, arm heat. Idle. CD player. Door shut, window shut. 10 degrees of flaps. Placerville, Skyhawk, 1874 Yankee, departing runway 23, local flight, Placerville. I called it a Skyhawk even though this wasn't. The rear windowed planes was called Skyhawks. But, you know, people will know what they are if you say Skywalk, so it covers them all. Full power, we have oil pressure. Just roll it down the runway until it hits about 55, lift the nose wheel. Oh, there it is, 45.
Orbital traffic, command 2406 kilos, 10 miles to the south, inbound for overflying 1,700 orbital.
Laps away. I mean, if this was a turbo 210, I'd be sort of manifold pressure and RPM, and getting the boost right, putting up the gear and the flaps, making sure the temps are good. But in here, nothing to do. We just took off. We're climbing at 600 feet a minute at 80. And it's very hot today. It's like 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like 30 centigrade. Placerville, Skyhawk 74 Yankee, left crosswind 23, Placerville. But remember, this thing's got the same wing on it as a Cessna 185 bush plane with 300 horsepower, tail dragger, float, skis, backcountry. Same wing, same flap, same aileron, same manual flap system on it. It will land very slowly if it has to. Look, 1,000 feet a minute, 70 knots, we're on downwind. We're at pattern altitude, so level off here, trim it, pull back the RPM to keep it below 2500. Placerville, 74 Yankee, left downwind 23, Placerville. So this is June the 3rd, no it's not, July the 3rd, independence from the British tomorrow, 4th, and there's still snow in the Sierras, which is good. Pulling back on the power to maintain at 2400 RPM. We're doing about 90 knots. This would do about 100, 110 knots or so in cruise. And it would burn about 8 gallons an hour because it's, or maybe 9 because it's a 6-cylinder. Slowing it down by 2 knots to get it into the flap range. Placerville, 74 Yankees on left base, 23 Placerville. 10. 20.
Orbital traffic, Command 2406 kilo, 5 miles south of the field, inbound for overflying 1,700.
Placerville, 74 Yankees on final for 23 at Placerville. 30 degrees of flaps.
9 miles straight in for runway 34. Check.
I've got 30 degrees of flaps in, I'm doing 60. A little bit of a crosswind on the left, clearly. Just for the hell of it, I'll put in 40 degrees. cruise for the That's how slowly it will fly. That is how slowly it will fly. That was indicating 0 in ground effect. Does not use a lot of runway. These are great fun. So with it being fixed gear and fixed pitch, and not high performance, and low fuel consumption, and cheap to insure, and not worth a huge amount of money, it's actually easy to buy and own one of these because it would keep you in the air if you had to then get rid of a high performance complex due to insurance reasons. This would be a great fun little plane to just have as the sort of family runaround, but without getting into too much sort of hot, high, heavy. So we landed, it was great. These are totally docile, trainer, tame, like easy to own, easy to maintain, easy to insure little planes. Fixed gear, fixed pitch, not a lot going on in them. Cheap to buy, cheap to own. So I did this one because it was a model year changes video and it fitted into the other years. I've done earlier planes, I've done later planes. This is a little unique window year and we had one in, so we did it. But we do videos like this talking about the different kinds of planes and flying them. And sometimes if somebody's got an interesting plane and they would like to have it be talked about, I can do an owner interview on a plane, but you know, something interesting and something we don't have to come from New York State or somewhere to show it to us. Just call me and bring it in and we can talk about it like this. But this is Mark at Skywagon University. You can click on the subscribe under here, click on the bell to get notifications. We've done a lot of videos already and there will be a lot more in the future. So thanks for watching.